Hello there, and welcome to Ask MandR, episode 363. On this episode, we're discussing the real reason LEGO Star Wars didn't make a UT-AT. Yes, the designers did answer this. We have more Death Star talk, of course, and much more. If you have a question or topic for next week's episode, leave it down in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you guys enjoy the series, and let's get into our first question from Southpaw, who says, I feel like the only other way they could have sold this set better, this set being the $1,000 Death Star, other than upping the quality of the figs, would have been to have a dollhouse-type interior where the set opens up on hinges, revealing two halves of the inside of the Death Star and having the option to close the model up to display as a space station, having a detailed exterior as well. So I think he's describing the same shape that is currently rumored, except it would be split in the middle and you'd be able to open it like a book. I think that could have been a little bit more interesting. It would have made it a little bit more displayable, giving it the actual look of a Death Star without having to be spherical. Definitely could have maybe worked. Like, you would still have the external paneling and things. Maybe that would have helped people want the set a little bit more. Again, we still haven't seen it, so it could still be something that we look at and we're like, okay, all right, that's cool, fair enough. But it's definitely trending in a direction, and very much the community sentiment right now is, this is a horrible idea. Why would you do this for $1,000? Nobody wanted a $1,000 diorama. Everyone wanted a $1,000 Death Star. Anyway, I'm very happy to see that everyone else is basically having the same reaction that I had to finding out that the $1,000 Death Star wouldn't be a big globe and more shaped like that Funko Pop thing I bought at Target. And given the community reaction, I don't know what amount of research LEGO did to figure out this was such a great idea, but they clearly didn't do a lot. Like, there's no way they did. And if you asked any LEGO Star Wars fan what they'd think a $1,000 Death Star should be, 95 to 99% of them would have said a big spherical globe shape with an interior, essentially taking the 2008-2016 sets and marrying them together with the 2005 model minus like the Death Star 2 aspect where it's missing big chunks of it. But you just panel it up, and that would be good for $1,000 maybe. That's how you'd get there. And while we're in Ask MandR, I want to do a small callback to an Ask MandR from 3 years ago where I said I didn't want the first $1,000 set to be a Death Star. So roll the clip.
Bert says, will a $1,000 Death Star come out, and if so, when? I hope a $1,000 Death Star is not the next Death Star that we get. The previous Death Stars have maxed out at $500. I just don't see what you can add to a Death Star that would double its price. It just doesn't work. I don't think it would be the first $1,000 set, unless inflation became crazy and it just happened to be the one that hit $1,000, but that's inflation. It still wouldn't be bigger than the others. The next Death Star is probably going to be considerably smaller than the previous Death Stars.
I was technically right that the next Death Star would be considerably smaller than the previous Death Stars, because the Death Star that came out after this video was actually the May 4th promo Death Star, which was tiny in comparison to the UCS Death Stars or Master Builder Series Death Stars. So even when it seems like I'm wrong, I'm right. I guess I'm just that good. What can you do? Not everything I said was right, of course. The next Death Star I really thought would be more like the LEGO Ideas Globe, and so I'm very surprised that they've gone in this direction given just the reaction of the community. Like, how did you not see that coming, LEGO? Canada Brick says, a blog recently had an interview with the designers and asked why the UT-AT wasn't made. What are your thoughts on their comments regarding their reasoning as to why it wasn't made? And I guess I'll just read their answer word for word here. Quote, we decided to make the Republic Juggernaut because it is a very well-known and popular vehicle, as well as one of the few vehicles in Star Wars with wheels. These make it a fun model to play with for kids who can't afford it, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. And of course, the blog won't push back on that particular point. They say, quote, the minifigs in this set we know have been highly requested, so we decided to add them to this set. Even though the troopers are not seen in Star Wars content with the Juggernaut, they could have used this vehicle. Quote, the UT-AT is an interesting vehicle though, and for sure one we can consider for a future set. So let's start with the idea that it's a turbo tank over a UT-AT, and this basically confirms what I thought was the case anyway, is people have wanted a turbo tank. A turbo tank is objectively a better playset, cooler vehicle, whatever, for kids to play with, and probably a vehicle that more people in general have wanted. However, when you throw in figures that have been married simply to one vehicle for their entire 20-year existence, you shouldn't do that. You should not have ever mixed those into this set. Those should have always been reserved for the day that you decide you're actually going to do a UT-AT. But the answer is basically exactly what I expected. Nothing crazy, nothing off the rails. There's no hint of like, well, yeah, we were making this set a UT-AT until very late in the development, and then it ended up being a turbo tank, which is why the turbo tank is really bad. I've seen a lot of people suggest that, and that's honestly just not even a possibility with the way that LEGO makes their sets. They're not going to switch a set completely from one build to another on a dime quote, I don't know, late in development is what people saying. Is like, I don't know how late is late. But the other kind of takeaway from their answer, if you read between the lines, is simply that they didn't even consider the UTAT a real possibility here. It seemed like it was always going to be a turbo tank, no matter what. And then it just came down to like, what figures are we going to include? Are we going to bring in more Kashyyyk troopers? Are we going to do like Clone Wars minifigs in this set? Like, basically it came down to that, not necessarily the other way around of like picking the vehicle. And so the UTAT was, in my opinion, clearly not a real consideration in this set, which is sad. It's not as crazy bad of an answer as they did with the Crab Droid in 2022 with Revenge of the Sith, but it's kind of the same thing to me, you know? They basically didn't consider it. They didn't care to actually make the thing that should have gone with the other stuff. And now we have a set that most of the community is iffy on at best, and it's massively overpriced. Like, good luck with that. So that's the official answer. Nothing crazy or fun, I guess, but we now have an answer that we probably could. I could have came up with that answer myself. Anyway, the Studded Brick adds on to an important topic from last week's episode. He says, quote, in 2021, LEGO lowered the price of brick sketches to $16.99 from $19.99, and that is a callback. I totally forgot about that, but that definitely did happen. And when it comes to lowering prices, again, we're talking about the MSRP, not just LEGO putting a set on sale. So LEGO did lower like the actual price on this. Now, this one is also still unique in that it's a LEGO store exclusive and not something available at other retailers. So I still don't think there's a precedent set where LEGO has lowered the actual retail price of a set at retailers. So I really still don't think any prices on summer sets are coming down. It's just not going to happen, guys. Like, don't get your hopes up. At best, we'll just see some better sales than normal if these sets really don't sell, if people really boycott them like they say they're going to. But as for LEGO dropping the price, even though that's a really great example, I love it. Probably not going to happen. Next from Jake's Finest, he says, I recently watched your vlog on getting the UCS Vendor early, beating the LEGO Ambassador Network, and how happy you were. Can we expect a similar video with the UCS Death Star? Because in my opinion, that would be one of your best videos. Biggest Star Wars set ever, reviewed before the LEGO Ambassador Network. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you. And no, you can never expect anything because in the words of Rick Harrison from Pawn Stars, you never know what's going to walk through that door.
You never know what is going to come through that door.
I mean, I could wake up tomorrow to a DM of a guy in Japan that found the Death Star early at his store, and I could have it the day after. That could happen. Not gonna happen, but it could happen, right? It's almost always a different person in a different country, a different place, and you just never know where the set's gonna come from, or a picture gets posted online, and then I have to like track down where that picture came from, and then sometimes I'll post on Instagram asking if a fan happens to live near there and can go to that place to get the set, basically. And even then, like, a set is never guaranteed to show up somewhere early. You just never know. The Death Star could be one that doesn't show up anywhere early, and I'll get it on release date and make my review within a couple days thereafter because it's a big set. It's going to take a long time. But the other aspect of it is it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse between LEGO and I, instead of LEGO just treating me right and sending me sets and I'll follow their dates and whatnot. They move review dates for their ambassadors, even though they wouldn't move review dates for me when I was an ambassador. Like, I would find, I don't know why I'm grabbing this one, it's not a good example, but find sets on the shelf, and I would ask them like, hey, you sent me this, I have it, but I just found it at Target, can I review it with the set you gave me? And they said, no, you have to buy it again and then make a review with the one that you bought. And now they don't tell ambassadors no. If I get a set, they immediately will move those dates up for their ambassadors. But when I was an ambassador, they wouldn't do it for me. And you wonder why I'm so jaded. So nowadays, they are more proactive, it feels, with it. Like the summer sets, all of those reviews came out in early July. Why would all the Star Wars reviews be in the first week of July for the ambassadors and the Marvel ones not until the end of July? Like, isn't that a little weird to you? It's just a little weird to me that it happened to shake out that way. It's almost like they wanted the Star Wars ones to be first for a reason.
This guy is really onto something.
So there's that aspect too of like cat and mouse with it. So the Death Star should get revealed in early September. I assume the review date will be mid-September. It will be very difficult, as it always is, for me to get a review of a LEGO exclusive set first. But as always, if any of you happen to find a Death Star, I will happily buy it off you as long as it's not stolen, and I will make the review of it as quickly as possible and try to beat the LEGO Ambassador Network as per usual, which I wouldn't have to do if LEGO just treated me right, but hey, it's more fun, I guess, the other way, maybe. Sometimes. All that aside, Brick Reporter says, what is the worst possible UCS set you can imagine LEGO making? And this was actually 5 days ago before the rumors of the Death Star being the shape that it was came out. And I feel like for a lot of people, this Death Star is that worst possible UCS set. Now, whether they put the UCS or Master Builder Series moniker on it is kind of irrelevant to me here with the way that it is. It's just the worst possible version of a Death Star for $1,000 that a lot of people could imagine probably. And I think I read through the replies of this comment because it got a lot of replies, and people people are like, oh, UCS Blue Milk Luke Carton or UCS Raise Speeder would probably be a fairly actually good real answer that I would have come up with, or UCS Sarlacc. I mean, people were saying all sorts of wild stuff, much wilder than I am saying here. So you could go to any level and come up with some really, really dumb, horrible UCS ideas. But as far as like realistic UCS sets that would be really bad for Lego, a $1,000 Death Star that doesn't meet people's expectations of what the most expensive Lego Star Wars Death Star ever could look like is probably a pretty bad idea, as we're finding out.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Next from Jay Ohio says, how would you feel if instead of printed wastegapes, Lego did dual molded legs for clones? And as we've seen with the $1,000 Death Star leaks, we can't even get dual molded legs in a $1,000 set. So why would Lego all of a sudden start putting dual molded legs in battle packs and Republic Juggernauts that are overpriced, etc., etc.? So that's a short, simple way to look at that. But also, there is no answer other than physical camas for clone troopers. If you print on the side of the legs, the back of the legs is still exposed and it doesn't complete the full waist cape look. And if you do dual molded legs, of course, then you're going to have printing discoloration, as you have to use black on the top, white on the bottom, and then on the black you have to print white, which is not going to match the white on the actual plastic part of the legs below that, and then you now have mismatched black and white and then a faded white, and it's going to look really bad like that. So it's also not an answer. I do not see anything but physical waist capes as the answer to clone troopers. There's no way around it. AZ Team says, do you think we'll see more Kashyyyk sets in the future? For example, a Wookiee Catamaran, 41st Elite Corps, and a Wookiee Battle Pack, Wookiee Treehouse, and so on. Hey, there was a great Wookiee Treehouse mock the other day on Instagram that I saw. Fantastic stuff. He's actually doing a whole series of mocks from Revenge of the Sith. Like, so many great, fantastic potential sets. I think also a Wookiee Catamaran. Like, there's a lot of great ideas out there that Lego could have done for Kashyyyk this year, potentially could do for Kashyyyk in the future, of course. And I just don't see it. Something like a Wookiee Catamaran, I would be shocked if they ever revisited that again. I think we'd be lucky to even get some version of a Wookiee Ornithopter again. Like, both of those are just seemingly so niche and off the beaten path. I think the coolest Kashyyyk set they could make that they haven't made, other than maybe the Treehouse set as like a big play set, whatever, that would be cool. A Yoda's Escape Pod on Kashyyyk, I've always thought of as something that could be pretty neat. Like, you could do Yoda's Escape Pod, include a Bark Speeder with a Kashyyyk Trooper, just so you can get a clone trooper in there, and then Chewbacca and Tarful. Maybe you could also do it as like his escape pod, and then maybe part of like the deck that they're on, and then you can include one of the clone troopers and the Commander Gree there. That actually might work too, and that way you can get a couple characters that people have wanted. Or alternatively, you could do the Kashyyyk UT-AT, so you camouflage it, kind of like they do with tanks. That'd actually be kind of fire. You do camouflage on top of a UT-AT and then put Kashyyyk troopers in it. That'd be horrible. I would hate that, but would be kind of a cool mock to see someone do, I guess. Grady says, no clue if I've ever asked before. I haven't seen it and thought it's fun. Hey, no fun questions on Ask MandR. That's rule number 1, but we'll give you an exception here. He says, what is your favorite Lego astromech droid? I think Plo Koon's brown astromech droid is my pick. Okay. All right. I like it. So I really love the McDonald's one and the IKEA one that we have seen in the last couple of years from Rebuild the Galaxy and from the Ahsoka show. And I feel like those are probably my couple of favorites. Like, they're just really fun. And there goes my light. Really fun, unique astromech droids. So if I had to pick, those would be my top 2. Really picking one, probably the IKEA one. Braden says, have you ever thought about comparing similarly priced sets? For example, right now the MTT, Turbo Tank, Star Destroyer, and Ghost are all $160. I think it might be good for people on a specific budget that can maybe buy only one of those sets. No, absolutely. It's actually one of my favorite comparisons I've ever done. It was the ATT and the Coruscant Guard Gunship, both $140 sets, and I just loved comparing those ones. So I've had a lot of people ask me to compare specifically the MTT and the Turbo Tank. I am very much considering doing that once I complete all of my other comparisons, because I've got like a half dozen that I need to do. But let me know, would you rather it be the MTT and Turbo Tank and that's it, or all 4 of those $160 sets? So I'll consider what comments I see and come to a decision if I end up making that video. Next from Cameron, he says, I've noticed that in a lot of your reviews, you tend to cut boxes open even if they have thumb tabs. Why do you not just open the thumb tab? So quite simply, if you open it with a thumb tab, it rips the back of the box. And so for a couple of reasons. One, I just want to have the back of the box look clean for my own personal collection. But also, if it rips the back of the box and I need to reshoot anything on the back of the box, box. Well, now it looks horrible in my video, so that's not helpful. And also, when you break the thumb tabs, the actual printed part can fall off, literally, and then I either have to glue it back on, or I usually just throw it away and it's gone. So then it's just missing a big gap of printing on the back of the box, which is worse than just having a jagged line. So yeah, I cut them because it keeps the box cleaner as far as how it looks for videos and things, and just my personal taste of having a box look as best as possible for my collection forever. Huge potential news from the Mattel Brick Shop community. Jason says, is LEGO going to lose the DC Comics license to Mattel Brick Shop? From what I read, Mattel took the rights to make DC toys starting in 2026. I am unaware of this, but this sounds really interesting. This is Mattel Strikes Back. LEGO took the Pokemon license, Mattel has taken the DC license, and the battle is on. I'm excited about this. I now have that glimmer of hope that LEGO Star Wars might end in 2032, and come 2033, Mattel will take the rights to LEGO Star Wars. That'll never happen. That'll never, ever happen. But it's kind of the wildest thing that could happen, so I'm kind of rooting for it. I guarantee if you ask someone that works for Mattel building that brand, they would say they would love to do Star Wars because it would instantly just rocket them to the top. They'd make a lot more money, and they'd be a lot more like culturally relevant, so that would be a crazy change. But DC is a good start. It's a good step towards that, and DC fans, from what I've seen with LEGO, have for a long time been quite disappointed with LEGO's output of LEGO DC sets. Now, the Arkham Asylum looks really cool, and could be LEGO's like last-ditch attempt to keep it. I don't know all the details, obviously. I only read a few questions asking me literally the same thing, and that's my level of knowledge on this topic. Either LEGO's going out with a bang, maybe it's just DC toys, not including brick-built toys, like that could be the case too. But I kind of hope LEGO does lose that license to Mattel. I think that'd be a fair trade for that Pokemon license to give Mattel something, right? Mattel needs something to hang their hat on going forward to try to build that brand. I mean, Hot Wheels is cool and all, but cars is only going to get you so far. You're going to need to get some, you know, culturally relevant characters like Batman or whoever, Superman, whatever they end up doing, into your building lineup, you know? Otherwise, you got nothing, I feel like. Next from Beef Brief, he says, what are your most memorable fan interactions? Look, I've met a lot of great fans over the years, but I think my favorite ones are at like sports stadiums. Perhaps the craziest one was about a year ago. I went to a Tampa Bay Rays game. This was before the roof came off. And I sat there through the whole game. I was with Steven from the Brick Show talking about God knows what for 3 hours. And game ends. Kid turns around, like probably 15 years old or something. And he goes, are you MandR Productions? And I'm like, what did I just say for the last 3 hours? Like, it's probably not anything that bad, right? But I was like, did I say anything I really shouldn't have said for 3 hours? So I'll always remember that one because it was insane to me. Then I was like at the NBA Finals. I've met a few fans there. It's kind of weird to me because it's like the mixing of my two like big worlds of like LEGO Star Wars and sports. Like, it's just weird to me that like I could be walking around the halls at an NBA game and like, oh, yo, are you MandR? That's wild. Like, that gets me every time. And then there was another time, one kid, I was at the Indianapolis Colts New England Patriots game in Indianapolis in 2021. And I posted on Instagram that I was at the game, and this kid, I don't know, probably like 18, 20 years old, literally walked around the entire stadium like he was on the other side, came all the way around to say hi to me and take a picture. So it was very cool. Like, I always love that. Those are my most memorable ones, though. Probably just because it's like, well, I'm at a sports game, this shouldn't be happening. But yeah, that's probably it. Speaking of sports, ironically, it's the reason one of those stories just happened. Rod the YouTuber 3 says, given your affinity for both Coca-Cola and Star Wars, will you be collecting the limited edition Star Wars Coke bottles and cans? So I've been, buying Coke as I do. I got Boba Fett here. The Grievous one I think is the coolest of these bottles, but I won't be collecting them. Maybe I'll save one though, because I do have a small Coke bottle collection. I've got the Share a Coke with MandR Productions bottle. I've got the 2004 Red Sox World Series bottle, and I've got a Christmas 1997 bottle. And I feel like if I don't have a Star Wars bottle, what am I doing? So I think I'll keep one. I know Anakin's been the one everyone's looking for that I see on TikTok, but I think General Grievous is the coolest, at least of the 20-ounce bottles. Maybe I'll do a can and a bottle, who knows? But so far, I haven't collected them. I have told myself I won't collect them, but maybe I'll keep one or two just because I've already got a few others. Eric says, I'm going to Bill in Denmark this fall for 2 weeks. Does the LEGO House ever do Star Wars special promotions or sets? I know they have special sets only offered to guests, and I'm wondering how that fully works. So I think anything that is exclusive to the LEGO House is just for sale there. Like, you walk into the LEGO House store and those sets, like the dinosaur set or the tree house set or whatever it is they sell, they're just there and you can buy them. I don't think you have to do anything special. I've never been there. I've never really researched this topic very much, but just through existing in the Lego space at the level I have for a long time, I've kind of picked up on that. That's how I think it works. Now, perhaps an even cooler thing to you is the fact that designers will sometimes sign sets at that store, and if you just happen to find them, you can of course buy them. So you could get like signed Star Wars sets there. I see them pop up on eBay every once in a while, but you can get like signed Star Wars sets there just by happenstance. So I would say keep an eye out for that too, and I really hope you enjoy your trip to Lego Mecca. Very weird question from Heisenberg. He says, do you do anything special to keep your hands clean or good looking for your videos? Since your hands are usually right up close in the reviews, I've always wondered if that's something you think about or take seriously. Other than trimming my nails, no. I have always considered myself very lucky though to not have very like hairy hands, because I always thought if I was doing Lego reviews and like you're holding sets and holding things up at 4K quality really close to the camera, it's unavoidable. Like if you got some ugly hands, I don't know, it's kind of a problem. I have thought about this, not in the way that you're thinking about it, I think. I've just thought about, oh man, I kind of lucked out on the hands jeans thing. Why are we talking about this? This is an absurd topic, but yeah, no, I don't do anything special other than just exist and cut my fingernails. So I've gotten very fortunate there, I think. Adrian says, what type of controller is that? Not PlayStation or Xbox, surely. So last week I did a little tour of my new gaming room, and you may have seen my controller there. I think it is a Scuff Envision Pro. It's the current controller that I use. I've used different Scuffs over the years, but this might be the best version that I've ever had. And I don't use a standard PlayStation or Xbox controller because I play competitively, or I used to play a lot more competitively, and so I'm just kind of stuck in that. Like I'll always use like a better controller with more paddles to be able to do more things on Call of Duty. So that is why I have a non-standard PlayStation or Xbox controller that you see. Meech says, do you think you'd ever do more gym/workout content? I know you have your vlog page, but from what I remember, you don't have much on that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to film in the gym. I think it's weird. Like, I don't, nothing wrong if that's what people do or whatever. Like, I get it. But I think I would feel so awkward recording myself in a gym with other people around. So I go to LA Fitness and there's always other people there. It's not like I can go at 4 a.m. to some small gym that's open 24/7 and there won't be anyone there and I can film and feel free. So if that was the case, maybe, but it's not. So I'm not, there's no way I'm doing that. 0% chance. It'd be so weird to me. So I get it. I know that's a whole genre, but I'm going to leave that to people that are much better at gym content than I, and I'm going to stick to the Lego content. So speaking of Lego content, that's it. We're out of it. It's over. See you next week.